So Debbie Rolando and Mito Fayed have spent this entire season of 90 Day Fiancé making you believe their relationship could end at literally any moment. Screaming matches, a moving day fight so bad the producers had to physically step in, a proposal that was actually staged as a fake breakup first. And just this past episode, Debbie sitting there saying she still wants more affection from him. Like they're still figuring out if this thing is even going to work. And the whole time you've been watching that, guess what? They were already married. Not engaged, not talking about it, actually, legally, on paper, married since December of last year. So everything you've watched play out this season, all of it, happened after they already said I do. We're going to walk through exactly how we know that, what the timeline actually looks like side by side, and why almost nobody has put these two stories next to each other and asked the obvious question. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Okay, so let's be real with each other for a second, because you guys already know Debby and Mido's storyline this season. It has not been subtle. Debbie is 55. She's an insurance agent out of New Orleans, and she has spent this entire season defending her 41-year-old fiancé to basically everyone in her life. Mito moved from Egypt to be with her, and from the jump, people around her were side-eyeing the whole thing because Mito has been very open about wanting to become a Hollywood actor, like name-dropping Will Smith, Denzel, Brad Pitt, Al Pacino, that level of Hollywood. And every single argument this season somehow circles back to the same thing. Is he actually here for her, or is he here for the green card and the acting dream? And she's just collateral. And it has gotten ugly. There was a Halloween night where things escalated so fast, screaming, cursing, real ugly stuff between the two of them, that production had to step in and physically separate them. Debbie ended up driving off by herself, leaving Mito standing there with the crew, telling producers she wanted him gone. She wanted him sent back to Egypt. That is not a "we had a disagreement" moment. That's a "this relationship might actually be over on camera" moment. And the show absolutely knew what it had, because that's the kind of scene that gets clipped into every trailer for weeks. Then a few episodes later, we get what is honestly one of the most manipulative little narrative tricks I've seen this franchise pull in a while. Debbie takes Mito to look at a wedding venue because his visa clock is ticking, and she wants to actually nail down a wedding date. And instead of talking about venues, Mito tells her he's done. He says he can't do this. He's going home to Egypt. Debbie is sobbing, completely broken down on the floor of this chapel. And then, plot twist, it turns out that was the setup. He gets back down on one knee and actually proposes. Ring and everything. And listen, I get it. From a TV producing standpoint, that's a great beat. Devastation into joy, right in one scene. But think about what they just did to her, and to you as the viewer. They made you sit in genuine heartbreak, made Debbie genuinely believe her fiancé was abandoning her on camera, purely to set up a bigger emotional payoff 2 minutes later. And then, in the most recent episode, the one that just aired, Debbie's basically processing all of that. She's telling us, telling the cameras, that she still wants Mito to be more affectionate, more emotionally open with her, physically warmer, because apparently that's still something they're negotiating. Like this is still an active, unresolved relationship question. Like nothing has actually been settled between them yet. So hold on to that, because here's where it gets interesting. Multiple outlets, Cinema Blend was one of the first, Cheat Sheet and Complex both picked it up too, reported back in June that public marriage records out of Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, show that Debby and Mido were issued a marriage license on November 18th of last year. and that they actually got married on December 12th, 2025. Not engaged, not planning a future wedding, legally married, husband and wife, on paper in the state of Louisiana, months before any of what you've been watching this season even aired. Now sit with that math for a second, because it matters. That Halloween blowout, the one where producers had to separate them, the one where Debby drove off saying she wanted him gone. Halloween happens in October. The wedding venue surprise proposal scene, the one where he pretends to leave for Egypt and then proposes with a ring, that got filmed sometime after that. And the marriage, December 12th. So depending on exactly when filming wrapped on each of those scenes, it is entirely possible, and honestly, based on the timeline, pretty likely that some of what you're watching as will they, won't they tension is actually footage of two people who, in real life, had already decided the answer. They'd already signed the paperwork. They were already legally committed to each other, while the show was still selling you the idea that this could fall apart any minute. And I want to be fair here, because I'm not trying to drag Debby and Mito personally for this. People get married privately all the time. Maybe they wanted something just for themselves, away from cameras and producers and a whole production crew standing around. That's actually kind of sweet if you think about it that way. The problem isn't that they got married quietly. The problem is what the show did with that information, which is nothing. Neither of them has said a single word about it on camera. Not a mention, not a confirmation, not even an "and by the way" thrown into a confessional. The show is still airing a storyline that frames their future as an open question, when the biggest possible answer to that question already happened in real life, off camera, months ago. So why haven't more people connected these two stories? Because that's the actual gap here, and it's a good one. Back in June, when this marriage record thing first broke, most of the coverage treated it as its own standalone story. A, hey, fun fact, they're secretly married kind of piece. Nobody at the time could line it up against specific episodes, because those episodes hadn't aired yet. Now that we've actually watched the Halloween blow-up and the chapel proposal play out on our screens, the pieces are finally sitting right next to each other where you can compare them directly. And almost nobody in this space has actually done that side by side. Which is honestly wild, because it's not even a hard connection to make once you lay the dates out. And here's the bigger question I keep coming back to. The one I don't think TLC particularly wants you asking. If Debby and Mito were already married in December, what exactly was that chapel scene? Was it a real proposal? Just staged for cameras after the fact? A recreation of a moment that maybe happened more quietly the first time around? Or was the whole "I'm going home to Egypt" bit scripted specifically because producers knew the real ending already and needed a big emotional swing to sell you on it? Because those are two very different things. One is a couple sharing a real moment again for an audience. The other is reality television manufacturing a cliffhanger it already privately knows the answer to. I'll be honest, my gut says it's somewhere in the middle, and that's kind of the point. This is what these shows do constantly. They take something that's already resolved in real life and stretch it out into 8 episodes of tension, because unresolved tension is what keeps you watching every Sunday. Debby and Mido being secretly married doesn't necessarily mean every fight was fake. The Halloween blow-up felt real, and honestly, I don't think you can fake producers stepping in like that. But it does mean that the "will he stay or will he go" framing the show has been leaning on this entire back half of the season is at best incomplete. And at worst, it's straight up misleading you about where these two actually stood the whole time you were worried about them. So here's my actual take on this. I don't think Debby and Mido owe TLC's audience a public timeline of their marriage. That's genuinely their business. But I do think it's fair for us as viewers to be a little more skeptical going forward about which unresolved storylines on this show are actually unresolved and which ones are just being edited to look that way. Because if this couple has been married since December and the show is still selling you a cliffhanger in August, that tells you something about how much of what you're watching is real-time uncertainty and how much of it is just very well-edited hindsight. So I want to know what you guys think. Do you think Debby and Mito's fights this season were genuine, even knowing they were already married underneath all of it? Or does knowing this change how real any of it feels to you now? Drop it in the comments because I am genuinely curious where people land on this one. And if you want to see the couple whose entire storyline might be the most divisive one on this show right now, for a completely different reason, I've got a video breaking down Asia and Maxwell, the couple where she says God personally picked her fiancé, and his own family is telling her on camera that they are not so sure. That one's coming up next, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it.